Sugar isn't always sweet. You certainly don't want sugar all over your stovetop, or you might end up with problems. So I'm just gonna get rid of it as best as possible. Okay, and so today what I'm doing is repurposing store-bought bread dough. So today I'm going to repurpose it and make cinnamon buns. So I've had it resting. That's where we're at. Now to get all the other stuff ready. So the first thing that we'll be making is the cinnamon sugar mixture. For this you'll need butter, brown treacle sugar, and cinnamon. Let's get cracking. This is a 500 gram block. So what I'll be doing is finding the halfway line. So that should be about 250. And then that, quarter it again. Well, not quarter it, half and then quarter. I have such a migraine today because in typical Africa fashion, we're supposed to be in winter at this point, but I have no idea what is happening. So while the sun is setting and rising when it should, it's certainly not behaving very politely. Now the next thing that we need to add to this, but before I do that, I'm going to pop this into the microwave for about 15 seconds. 15 seconds. This butter is way too soft for the first day of winter, but in any case, I digress. And go back to that conversation about what exactly is room temperature. If someone could tell me, that would be great. Then the next thing to add is the treacle sugar. Treacle sugar is a little bit different to normal granulated brown sugar in that it's very sticky and goopy. So whatever you do, just make sure that you compress it into the cup to get the right amount. And that is good. And then we need a tablespoon of cinnamon, ground cinnamon. Then give it a good stir. Then for the next step in this process, I'm going to flour the counter. And just make sure to keep your flour on standby in case we need some more. I'm going to split it into half to make my life a little easier. And using my trusty non-stick roller, I'm going to try and get this out into a flat rectangular sheet. Now, bread dough is a little different to pizza dough in the sense that it's a lot mushier. Okay, it doesn't have that firmness, but it's okay because at some point we will have it rolled out. Let me just get it there, and we'll continue from there. Oh my gosh, it's using a lot more flour than I was expecting, but it is very soft. We just need to get a semi-rectangular shape and then we can hopefully continue. Now, while a lot of cinnamon bun recipes want you to use an entire rectangular sheet, I'm wanting to try and make croissant-shaped cinnamon buns, so see how that's going to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to split, let me just see where's half there, and here is a good middle ground, and there's a good middle ground. So I'm not going to cut it in half, I'm actually going to cut it into almost like a triangular shape. Don't use knives on your kitchen counters, guys. That's how you damage them. That's why I'm using this normal butter sort of knife just to separate it. Make sure your oven is set to 220 degrees Celsius. I'm going to be using my pizza stone just because the ceramic actually helps with better heat distribution. So I'm going to lubricate that with spray and cook. Hopefully it works better than it did with my cake. Then using a silicone brush, or in my case this, which is actually clean. I know it doesn't look that way, but it is, I assure you. I'm going to start with the big one in the middle and give it a generous coating. Then starting at the tip, we're going to gradually roll it towards the larger edge. Oh, wait.
It was at this moment that she knew. She fucked up.
I did that backwards. But anyways, so reverse croissants then, I suppose. In any case, let's try and get this more triangular in shape. Why does everything have to be challenging at times? You want it to be about, I would say, 1/2 centimeter thick. Once again, sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to. Let's try and actually make it into a croissant shape. I don't know why I was so confused. You know what? I'm not happy with this. This is a weird shape. What is my life? Oh, it looks like a boomerang. That's fabulous. I have no idea how this is going to look, but we'll just go for it, I guess. No, I'm doing it wrong again. What would a video be if it actually went correctly for a change? And in today's episode of What Weird Shapes Can We Make? You know, sometimes I think about it and then consider the fact that I cause 99% of my own problems. But this one looks like ovaries this time, so that's fun. Kind of ovaries, kind of not ovaries, if you know what I mean.
How about the Phyllis-Angela dispute?
You already did me.
That's what she said.
Looks like something else at this point. Okay. And there, if that's not the most stunning croissant you've ever seen. So I guess basically what I'm doing today is just experimenting in a very unnecessary way. So with the first half of the dough, I decided I would do something different, even though I've never made croissants before, but at least now you know how not to fold them. So we're going to repeat the process of getting a rectangle out and about, and this time I'll just do it the right way, like the way cinnamon buns are meant to be made. I always tend to do that to myself, testing things out or doing things on camera now, instead of getting my facts straight before the fact. How you should make cinnamon buns. And we still have some left, of course, yes we do. The freezer is literally the graveyard of all the things. Okay, now let's try and get it shapely and roll. That's good enough, I guess. Now let's get the chopping board, because now I need to cut. Place the roll and cut. Oh my god. Well, it's certainly going to be very saucy. So what I'm going to do with this batch is I'm actually going to put them onto a baking tray and not onto my pizza stone. And I'm also going to turn the temperature down. Oh god damn, this is going to be very saucy. But, you know, it's the small wins sometimes. So onto my ratchet tray, I'm going to put some wax paper, or baking paper rather. Then I'm going to place these very interesting cinnamon rolls on here. This is going to be magical. Because sometimes it's not about how well you can do something, it's about how well you can recover from doing something wrong, I suppose. So I'm going to pop these in the oven for about 15 minutes. I'm going to keep the heat on 220 degrees Celsius and we'll see how that turns out. Then to prevent any mess when these abominations finally come out of the oven, I'm going to put some more of this paper and put the tray on top of it. Alright, because I know that it's going to get messier from this point. And now that the first batch is done, I mean, I don't think it turned out too badly. Oh my god, this is hot. Obviously the one that was folded properly looks the best, or rather most impressive, whereas all of these look a bit bizarre. But you know what, they'll probably all taste just fine. Oh my god, don't make my mistakes. Fuck. And this is why we needed the paper. Alright, so I'm going to try and move them along to make space for the tiny abominations when they come out. Wow, this is majestic. You know? And now that the others are out, we can see what this whole situation is looking like. Okay. Nothing is doing. So when these have cooled down sufficiently, I will, you know, remove the paper that is now haunting my life. I'll try and use the grippers instead. Okay, now that we've removed all the paper. Let me rephrase that. Now that I have removed all the paper, I'm going to give it a taste. I mean, they may look abominable, but the taste is there. I wouldn't change anything else, except maybe the dough. So I feel that my pizza pie dough would actually be more conducive to this situation. Okay, now on to the next step. Okay, I'm busy munching on something, so don't mind the sound. It was already in my mouth. Why are we dealing with cats again? That's crazy. So what we'll need is half a cup unsweetened cocoa. Okay, that's about half a cup. 1 cup of granulated sugar. So I'm going to put in 2 halves. Sugar isn't always sweet. So 1 half and another half. 1 pinch of salt. I mean, I suppose that's a very liberal pinch. And lastly, the vanilla essence. We need half a teaspoon, so this is a 1/4 measure. I'm going to put 2 of them in to make up half a teaspoon. Now, very much like when we made the, what did we make? When we made, or rather when I made, this migraine is really terrible. I cannot even focus right now. But in any case, melting or dissolving all of the cocoa. Now the thing is, there are lumps. And now, like when we did the, what? Think of the words. Think of the words. Oh, the ermine / ermine frosting. So I'm going to put this in, let it do its thing, and get rid of the clumps. Okay, looks good. Now back onto the stove. So now I've put the stove plate on a high heat. You want to keep stirring, but I now need to go and deal with the cat crisis. I don't know what even happened. Alright, let's not take our eye off the prize. What we want to do is bring it to the boil. And once it's there, we want it to simmer for about 2 minutes. As a side note, you can actually, instead of adding water, add cream or milk. It just depends on the flavor profile that you're going for. I just feel that using water is fine. Here's one big clump that evaded the law. Okay, as you can see, there's this frothy stuff on the top, which is an indication that it's getting close to boiling point. Keep the stirring at a vigorous pace. Let's check the boil status. Alright, we're there. Let's set the timer. 2 minutes. At this point, I have actually turned the heat off entirely. This is just working off of the existing stove plate's temperature, and we are done. Remove from heat. Now for the glaze. So for that you're going to need some icing sugar and water. If you don't want to use water, you can use cream or milk to give it a, I guess, creamier taste, but water is just fine for me. So in this case I'm going to do roughly half a cup. And we need half a tablespoon of water. Oh, that was 100,000,000% successful. No, it wasn't. It was two. Then just use a spoon or whatever's closest. If you add too much water, you're going to have to add more icing sugar, and we don't want such a stodgy mix. So let's put another half in, because technically the recipe for making a glaze is 1 cup of icing sugar to 1 to 3 tablespoons as a variance. So I'm just going to add a tad bit more. Alright, that was a little bit more than a tad, but in any case, let's mix. And that's pretty good. It's a good consistency. It's not too thick, but it'll drizzle nicely. That's what he said, though. So first things first, let us position things in a better way so that we're not going to mess on the counter. Then the first thing you want to do is put the glaze on. And then for the last bit, the chocolate drizzle, except it needs to cool down a little bit more. And even though the chocolate sauce is not sufficiently cooled down, it's cooled down enough for me to make a thumbnail. So let's see what it's looking like. It has thickened a little tiny bit, but not notably enough. So it shouldn't look like, it shouldn't be this runny, but obviously it's because, you know, impatience. That and the migraine. I need to lie down. I need to sit down or something. I'm literally going to not see tomorrow through